Louisiana Republican Mike Johnson has been Speaker of the House for less than a week, but he already has plenty of work ahead, securing more funding for Israel, debating a possible impeachment, averting a government shutdown. But there's one issue that Johnson's already worked on, the supposed weaponization of the federal government. Earlier this year, Johnson was part of the congressional committee that launched the crusade against federal law enforcement agencies, which they claim had been politicized and biased against the GOP. The now newly elected Speaker joined me a few months ago for a wide-ranging discussion about what he feels is a two-tiered justice system. I laid out evidence of what I consider to be a pro-law enforcement defense of the FBI. I cited all the high-profile Democrats the FBI, led by a lifelong Republican, has gone after in the past couple of years. And that was, by the way, before Democratic Senator Bob Menendez was indicted. The conversation offers a window into the man now third in line for the presidency.
The Republicans in the House and those who are on the Weaponization Select Committee are among the greatest champions for law enforcement, and our brave rank and file FBI agents and officers and everyone who works in the Department of Justice at the agency level and the field office level. Our concern is very specifically with the very top level of leaders in the FBI. And this is not our word that you should rely upon. It's the word of whistleblowers and agents, field agents, those very people that we so respect, who are coming forward and telling us their stories and affirming things that we know sort of intuitively have happened. That's the data we're collecting right now.
When I listened to the FBI agent, the first one who testified at the weaponization hearing, she didn't give any specific examples of being told to do something based on politics. She just said she was frustrated. She gave up. I think she was there in 1999. But just basically said that she was kind of just tired of the general things that were happening in the FBI. I mean, to make these sorts of allegations, this is serious stuff. To claim that Republican Chris Wray is out there targeting Republicans in an unfair way.
There actually has been quite a bit of evidence gathered, and not just from the whistleblowers. Some of this is public information. We know, for example, that last year they targeted parents, concerned parents who showed up at school board members and gave them a threat tag, labeled them as potential domestic terrorists. It began files on parents for showing up and protesting mask mandates.
But you know it wasn't for showing. I mean, look, the bottom line is, look, I get that there's a debate over exactly how hard the DOJ should be going after parents who were, in their view, potentially threatening people at school board meetings. Fair enough. Have that discussion, have that debate.
We're just getting started.
All right.
But we know that evidence is out there. We've gathered some of it, and the American people are going to be able to see it and draw their own conclusions. So, look, I'm with you. I want to be fair. We're being objective about this. This is not for politics. This is to shore up the people's faith in our institutions, because it's at record lows, and that's a threat to all of us.
Well, let's talk about that, because at the hearing last week, you talked about the public's eroding trust in the FBI. I want to listen to what you said at that hearing.
Professor Turley just cited statistics here today that there are large numbers of Americans who now distrust the FBI. Our task here is to determine exactly how that's happened and how to correct that framework.
Well, isn't the biggest reason Americans have lost faith in the FBI that you and so many of your colleagues are constantly slinging mud at them?
No, Dan, it's because of the things that we're talking about. They see that conservatives and people that have different political viewpoints than the current administration and the people in charge of the FBI and the Department of Justice, for that matter, are being targeted. They're being censored and silenced. This is not hyperbole. This is not some sort of conspiracy theory. We know what happened. When you're talking about the collusion with the FBI and big tech in the last election cycle, that is public information. It's not even being disputed. They had regular meetings. They said the FBI, you could hardly tell where the FBI ended and the big tech platforms began. This is not appropriate behavior. It shows a hostility towards the First Amendment.
I apologize. You used the word collusion there in the same way that people who wanted to go after Donald Trump used the word collusion about Russia, right? They would say, well, he had conversations. Well, Don Jr. had meetings with him, et cetera. It's the same sort of misleading use of the word collusion in this case. The bottom line is, of course, the FBI had conversations with big tech. I hope they have conversations with big tech. I would think you hope that they have conversations with big tech. But what you don't want them doing, you don't want them to have any communication at all, no matter if they've got an investigation ongoing, if they think that big tech can help them in any way, you've got a terror investigation, don't talk to them.
Wait a minute, but this was not about investigation.
I understand it wasn't.
This is no. This is what the evidence will show, and we'll present this in the hearings. We already gathered this. The FBI went to big tech and said, "We don't like what this person is saying. We don't like what this politician is saying. We don't like what this candidate is saying." And we would suggest that you censor and silence their
Okay. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.